Hi guys, welcome to Paint with Kina session number 9, 10, 11. Actually, 10 or 11. Yeah, so it's the Bumblebee class. So I have it written at the top of the flyer, but really I don't think it matters which number we're at. We're almost at 12. That means I've been doing it for a year, which, like, that's pretty cool, I gotta say. I'm pretty stoked about that. So for today's class, I have the sample piece here. It's still like the small image. I haven't painted it large yet, so today will be my first time painting it in a big format too. So for today's class, I'm aiming to do the background and then the flowers. And depending on how long it takes us to get through the background and the flowers, we can try doing the Bumblebee, but I've set aside 2 separate classes for this because I wanted to make sure that we had time to finish it properly. Mostly because the flowers in themselves, even if we do them in the arrangement that I'm planning, could actually look pretty good on their own as a standalone piece. But as you know, I record these classes, so you know, you can always, if you can't make it to the next one, which is Friday, April 30th, time, I'm putting it 8 o'clock. Normally it's 7, but I actually have a book club with my family at 7 or at 6. Anyway, for a book I haven't even read yet. It's okay. It's fine. So I made it at 8 just in case I actually do plan on reading the book and going to that meeting. It's not a very long book. It's called The Vanishing Half. It's a new book. It's a fiction. The woman who chose it in our book club, she often doesn't like it no one likes it when we choose like 800 page book. You know, like we try to keep the page minimum, maximum to like 250 pages, but sometimes a good story is just a good story. It takes a long time to get through, Sometimes they're long for a good reason and whatever. Book club. That's why I've split it in 2, and that's why the second class is at 8 and not at 7. All right, so for today, we're going to be using primaries. I have the colors already set out on this palette here, but that's just because this is the palette I was using for the test piece. So I'm going to bring up my second palette, which is going to be clean, so you guys can follow along with a fresh palette, so it makes a bit more sense. We are going to start with the background first. Yeah, I think for this one, if you have a primary red, it would make the greens a little bit... Actually, we're not doing greens. We don't need magenta for green. We're not going to be using the red or magenta until we make an orange. And magenta makes an orange just fine. So magenta or red are fine. It'll just change the nature of your orange for your flowers. And later on for the Bumblebee, the reason I chose the primary red... is to make the orange a little deeper. And we are also going to be trying to mix kind of a black color without actually using black, because I find it, well, you guys know my rant about black paint anyway. I feel like sometimes it doesn't, it's not as vibrant as the other colors. And like, I know black is not a vibrant color, but anyway, sometimes it really sticks out from the other colors. So magenta or primary red, primary magenta or regular red are fine. For this one, I will be using regular red though, because I'm not aiming for those, like the color of my pants where it's like all these purples and blues all mixed together. We're not making any purples or blues today, so that's why I don't care which red you use, as long as you can use it to make some orange to your liking. Cool? Alrighty. Cool. So, first, we're going to do, I just keep this around. Maybe I can just hang it up here. Totally. We're going to do this, we're going to grab our flat big brush, because we're doing our background first, so we always use the big flat one first. I'm using a rounded filbert flat, my usual. We're going to be doing, this part is probably going to be the easiest and the most chill. We're just dabbing the background with green. And it can be in any pattern because there's no shading and there's no blending in the very background of this. All we want to do is we're going to simulate foliage. It's going to be like plants that are actually out of focus. That's the kind of the goal, because the photograph that I used for this reference, it was like a macro photo, so the bee was like in hyper focus and so were the flowers, but then the greenery behind it is like this fuzzy kind of look. So the first layer is going to be a dream. I'm telling you, it's going to be great. So for green, you guessed it, it'll be blue and yellow, but remember, blue is so much stronger than yellow. So I'm gonna grab a big old blob of yellow. You can see that on one corner of my palette there. And this is about like a full teaspoon or so of paint. I've never really measured paint in teaspoons, but there you have it. And then adding to that, probably just comparatively speaking, a teaspoon of yellow and like a dot of blue. So that's just to show you the contrast of what it's going to do. I never dive in and mix the whole chunk of it right away, just in case it's really strong. So I start on the edge there, and then I slowly work in. We're not going to be using pure yellow, so it's okay if you contaminate this whole blob of yellow. It's all good. You're probably going to need it more later anyway. So I'm just grabbing the edge until I have a green that I like. And again, this green is totally up to you. It doesn't have to be the same as mine. So I'm going to say I'm definitely leaning more towards the yellowish green, just because it's so much easier to add blue than it is to add yellow. And then we just go for it. Yeah, I guess I'll just start in the top corner. And this is one of the few circumstances where, hang on, my camera's like really dark. It's one of those times where before I used to say things like, oh, make sure you blend in a certain direction, right? Sorry, I'm lifting the blinds in my office and they're being stubborn. So I will go ahead and tell you to cover the whole canvas. There we go. We still have a little bit of daylight left. Let's use it. Whoa! It just goes so bright randomly. I wish it wouldn't automatically adjust for me, because that's really, really annoying. Okay. So yeah, this is one of those situations where it doesn't matter what direction you're doing it in, because it's going to be like foliage. And depending on how translucent your yellow is, you might have to go back over it not a few times, but like a couple times, maybe a few, 10, 14. My yellow is quite transparent, so I might, to get it to completely cover the canvas, I'm gonna try to layer it up a bit. But yeah, the direction doesn't matter. I'm gonna do like all types of direction. You could even use like a really big brush if you get really impatient. You can just like take out, like some honkin' giant wall painting brush and see. This would be a cool, like I could actually test it. So here's my giant brush, and I can test some big strokes too. Ooh, that's very yellow. So yellow, way too yellow. But since our goal is to cover the whole canvas, but like see how the strokes, you can tell that they're from a big brush, but you know what? It's up to you. I'm gonna use the little one, but I just wanted to demo that if you get really impatient and you're using a very large surface and you're not, like I'm painting on a 16 by 20, but that's just so that it's bigger for you to see. If you're using the 11 by 14, it's probably a bit more manageable with a regular brush to cover this whole background. I know, yeah, so it's like I'm already almost out of my teaspoon here, so it's nice because you're gonna get a whole variety of of pockets of, like, what I love about a background of kind of abstract green is that it could almost even simulate, like when you're staring up at a tree and there are pockets of sunshine here and there. That's why I like to go more on the yellow side, because then it could be like sunshine coming through. Not that, it depends on I don't know, the flowers, how high they are off the ground. I don't know if you would actually see sun behind them, but I feel like it's a much more springy green if you go closer to the yellow side, as opposed to using like a turquoise or a blue-based green. So depending on the blue that you used, oh yeah, sorry, I'm using primary cyan as my blue. So primary cyan tends to be a little more on the yellow side anyway. Cyan is more of a green-based blue than others. And I know, Amelia, you have like 6 different, or at least 3 different blues at your disposal right now. Yeah. Phthalo, yeah. Phthalo. Oh, wonderful. So you were able to kind of simulate the ultramarine with phthalo and violet, was it? Oh, that's right, the dioxazine. Those are intense colors. Those are meant for like, I mix them. I really love mixing. I have a, yeah, I do remember that with the Diox Purple. I don't use it very often. I think the most I ever used it was when I was training for Art Battle, because at Art Battle they use all the Wallix colors, and when I was at the Art Battle I'm like, ooh, this is pretty, and then I use it, I'm like, whoa, okay, like I mixed it with like one thing and it just completely changed its character so quickly. And yeah, it's interesting. That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm still surviving off of that giant bulk thing I bought when I was working at Splat, because it was across the way from Dessert. So for a while I was just getting all my paint at Dessert, and then I bought these giant bulk containers, and I still have a ton of like stuff that I bought from there. So I haven't quite yet switched over to Wallix paint, but now I am since COVID basically. But I'll get there eventually. I'll probably stick with Wallix just because it's predictable and I have the discount there. I mean, Dessert is also really good, but I also have to go into the mall for that. It's not ideal right now. I don't like going into the mall. Wallix is really nice. I just called them and they came out. There was a little bit of a mix-up with my order because I had ordered so many canvases aside from yours. I ordered like 15 other ones. So they had like the bag of paints and brushes, and then I'm like, no, there's more. There's a lot more to this order. I know how much I bought. And like, oh, okay, sorry. And then they had to run inside and go find it. So it's all good. Yeah. Making more green. Yeah, they make their paint in Canada too, and like I know the owner, and it's cool. It's really nice to be like, you can also give them suggestions for what you think they should carry, and I don't know if they always listen, but whatever. They're nice people. That being said, I don't really know. I think I spoke to the manager at Dessert once or twice because he was... That's pretty sweet. I do remember he was really cool too, so... Nice! Oh yeah, those are big, yeah. Nice. Did she use it? I hope so. Oh, excellent. That makes me happy. That's good. I love it. Yeah. I really... I haven't done any art journaling for a while. I keep meaning to do some. I'm streaming tomorrow journal day, but it's also the last... Is it already? It's already, yeah, the last Sunday of the month, and I have to do... I'll do the raffle stream at the end, but... I've been cleaning out my office a lot because I painted it. You guys can't really see it, but that wall there is teal now. But the dark wall is like behind the camera, so you can't really see it. But it's all painted, and I reorganized a bunch of stuff. And while I was reorganizing everything, I really, I kept coming across all of my art journaling stuff because I just threw it all into a box and shoved it on the shelf. And then recently I've been digging it all up again. And I'm like, oh, I just want to play with paper and collage things. So I'm feeling like tomorrow is just going to be an art journaling day. And I'm pretty stoked for that because I want to just, I just want to like glue things. You know, you just feel like you need a tactile day, you know? Oh, it came off okay? Oh, that's good. But yeah, I totally, once in a while, I just need a day to play around with colorful pieces of paper. It reminds me of being in like kindergarten and just doing the arts and crafts. And yes, I do remember arts and crafts in kindergarten. I do remember. What's that? Yeah. Exactly. They would give you like random photocopies. You'd color it with your, your crappy crayons and like your Crayola scissors and glitter. Oh, you have crayons? I love crayons so much. Like every time I open the box and they're brand new and they're all there and they're all colorful, and you just smell them and it's just, yeah. Oh, you colored the kangaroo. Oh, you gotta show me. I mean, not right now if you can't. Oh, I haven't been on Discord. I haven't looked. Oh, no worries. On the art. Okay. Nice. Well, post it on Discord so we can all see it again. If you want. It's all good. All right, I think I'm almost covered up here. I might go back and do a few more dabs of green in other shades. Yeah, hang on. When I get there, I'll talk it out. I think I need more yellow. Holy cow. It's like, it's a lot of paint. It's all good though. At least I'm using it up. There won't be very much waste here, which is nice. It's so weird to be recording this class in daylight. I have to say, like, I know I said this last month too, but like, daylight savings time has really altered the, oh yeah. Where's my yellow at? My art cart. Which I try to keep all of my paint on now, because I used to have so much extra paint kind of hidden throughout my house. And then I would not know if I bought a certain color. Like the other day when I was buying art supplies on stream, I was like, you know what, guys, I need more black. And then I found a whole other giant container of black that was totally unopened. I'm like, oh, crap. I just bought the same thing twice. I mean, I'll use it, but it had to be black, of course. I rarely ever use black. So I'll have to do some some more space. Even though, yeah, everybody loves space. Okay, at least with acrylics, I don't know. We'll see. I don't normally paint space with acrylics, but I can give it another go. More yellow. Here we go. Marathoning it. No, I just had to mix more green. I ran out of green. My canvas, it's the 16 by 20. It's big. It feels really big right now. It seems kind of ridiculous, but it's okay. Nice. Yeah, I started running out of stuff to paint over, and yeah, I had this painting, the one I posted a couple days ago, or maybe just yesterday, the sunset over the water picture, and I posted that. I posted it on Facebook because I added it to my shop, and like I haven't added very many originals to my shop like ever, so I was like, oh, I was digging through the basement and I found that painting. I'm like, oh, this is nice. This is a bit, I feel like someone might want this. I don't want to paint over it, and then because I was digging around for something to paint over for tonight, but I ended up just buying a bunch of them, so I have to meet my quota anyway. of like spending a certain amount a month at Wallach's or I lose my discount. So like, yeah. So Sally, actually, if you need anything at Wallach's, I can always just get it discounted for you there, and I can, whenever I can bring it by. They're only doing curbside pickup right now, but their website has their inventory of the store and it's accurate, so, which is nice because yeah, it's tricky. And I try to only do the one trip a month, and if I need anything, I kind of just write it down in my journal, and then at the end of the month I'll buy it. Oh, I agree. Yeah. It's I mean, it's not the most accessible, but it is what it is. I find it just really hard to get parking there, personally, especially if it's busy. All right, so I'm gonna mix another green, which, just to add some variety, I have a little bit of green left here, and I have some white on my brush. I added some white to my palette right there, just now. I have some white. And I'm gonna make a lighter green just to see. It's a bit yellowish green. Let's see. Just to add some variety and really just to make it a bit more opaque in some spots, because I find the yellow is very translucent, so I can see the canvas a lot through some spots. So I added some white. I'm just gonna see. It makes it look thicker, and I'm doing it very loosely in random spots. It's just like kind of making them spaced out evenly. I'm very, very lightly, very quickly stroking it. It's not trying to blend. I'm just lightly applying it so that it sits on top there. And again, it's kind of like an abstract layer, so you can even have some brush strokes showing. So it makes a little bit of just a different texture. Again, totally up to you because it's more of an abstract layer. Here and there, I'm adding some water. Very, very little, just because this plate palette is very dry, and I notice that my paints dry really, really quickly when I'm using this plate. So I dipped it in white, and then I dipped it in some water, and I'm kind of just making another abstract-y kind of green layer on top. I know, you guys must be getting used to my horribly non-technical descriptions. You know, just splash some stuff here and there. Just, you know, I don't know, a little bit of green, a little bit of white. Uh-huh. The wheel thingy is this many inches or centimeters. Oh, that's funny. The wheel thingy. I don't know what you would call that. The tracks? They're not really tracks, but wheel bait. Yeah. If it's an office chair. Yeah. Okay. Wheel thingy. I would have said wheel thingy. Yeah. Casters. Oh, it's way too official. Sally's an expert. She's on wheels. That's awesome. Well, if I ever need to know more, I know who to call. I know all about I know that they function. That's all I need to know. I know that they're working, and they've never hurt, so that's a good thing. Yeah. Isn't it kind of fun? I don't know. I really like this. I'm just like, okay, I'm done. It's kind of crazy. It's all good. It's very green. It looks like I just kind of face planted into a pile of grass. A lot of my paintings lately, like, just have a lot of green in them because I'm very excited for spring and summer. And I've been working in the same palette for so long, like the purples and blues and dark colors. And now I just feel like I'm just done with that. I'm gonna, oh, this is a bit light. Oh, it's okay. Just my random texture. Okay. Are you guys mostly sort of covered now? Yeah, sweet. Okay. The next step I will proceed to explain. I really could just work this background like all day. It's so satisfying. Because it feels very, I know that something else is going on top of it, and often if I know that that's going to happen, I am less, I feel less inhibited. Like I just go nuts on it, right? And often that's when like really magical stuff can happen, but it's okay. We'll paint over it. I do. Think less and just paint. Yeah. I usually know what I'm doing. Right? Yeah. That's why I like doing these classes, because it's stuff that I normally wouldn't paint. You know, I want to think of things that are attractive enough that people might see it and who have never painted before and think that maybe they could do it, or I don't know. And then it usually ends up being stuff that I really, really enjoy painting, and just like I can really relax and just like do whatever. It's chill time. Okay, so next we're going to do some background, the second layer of our background, which is, they're like branches, but I think in the photo when I saw it, they don't show very much, but it's like here and there, it's as if it were either stems of the flower or darker strands of grass. It's really not specific. It's just kind of like a look that adds another layer of dimension before we get to the flowers. So we're gonna mix a green again, but it's gonna be heavier on the blue side. You can see that. Heavier on the blue side, and maybe like a tiny little touch of red or your magenta. It just makes it a bit deeper, depending on your blue. So when I mix this color, I will start with the same green as the background. And once I've mixed that color, I add a little bit more blue and then a touch of red. So I'm gonna start, I'll do it. Now I have totally used up my green. So I'm gonna show you, this is the giant patch that used to be my green. So I'm refreshing it with more yellow, like so. And then I'm gonna grab my blue dot. Just dot some blue in there. And this should be right around the exact same green that I was using. And I would advise, if you're using, well, we're all using, hopefully if you're using a flat brush, it should be fine, but we're gonna be using the edge of the flat brush. But if you're not comfortable making a straight, well, not straightish, a thinner line with this brush, go ahead and switch over to a pointed round, because we'll be doing longer, thin strands. I'm comfortable using this flat, like so, like this, to make a thin, or you can do that alternatively, right? That's normally how we use it, but I can use it on its side to make a thin line. Or if you're not comfortable with that, like I said, you can grab, you know, a thinner guy to do these, like that. So I have green mixed here. I'm gonna add a bit more blue, and it's gonna go down a shade. That's mostly just because my blue is pretty intense. It's a cyan, but it makes it dark green. You're gonna use a phthalo, yeah? You can. Test it on your palette first and see what it does, and then I'm taking a touch. So this is a tiny little touch of red I have here. See that? Right there. And then I'm gonna test the red on the edge here. Holy cow, that's intense. All right, so that's too much. So I have some red being mixed into my dark green right here. This gives it more of the brown color. And the brown is gonna be closer to, I mean, it's like a green brown. But if you ever This is a good clue to where it is like army green, exactly. So when you're ever doing a painting and you're painting with green and you don't know how to make it darker, please don't add black. Try adding red first because it makes it so much richer. Or like Amelia is using the phthalo blue, if you have a deeper blue or an ultramarine, yeah, it's just to get a deeper, darker green as opposed to that bright yellow green we were using for the foliage, right? Now, so I have my color mixed now. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wet the brush because my paint is really thick and it dries out very quickly. So to do thinner lines, I like to have it a little bit more watery, just so that it makes a more smooth line. Also, because we've already, my background's dry. I don't know if yours is already dry, but mine's definitely dry. Because we've already laid down a layer of acrylic, it's okay to do a wash on top of it. Normally you wouldn't do a wash on the first layer, but it's all good. So I'm dipping my brush real quick in water, and then I'm putting it in my dark green. I just wave it around, dab it in there, here and there, each side. Again, if you're not comfortable using the flat side, switch over to a round. So the first strand I'm gonna do is gonna be kind of from the top left side, arcing down to about the first third of the bottom. So if you want to do a little dot or a marker here first, and then your bottom, I know sometimes that is a bit helpful to know where you're headed. If you just want to make it totally wherever and do your whole forest of stems and branches totally randomly, that is also fine. So I'm gonna start with one here. It's not super thin. Like that. Well, that's a lot thicker than I thought it would be, but that's okay. And then I'm gonna do another one behind it in that corner. It's kind of like about a third from the top left side over down to halfway between the corner and the first line that we did. So they're kind of like stripes. Okay, and then I'm gonna have another one cross over from about halfway from the top and a quarter from the bottom left. Again, these are just arbitrarily placed. The idea is to get a few sectioned off. The majority of this piece is going to be, as you know, is going to be covered with the flowers. So you really can't tell, but it will show in the little pockets of space behind the petals. So don't feel like it has to be perfect. For sure not. This next one I'm doing is just about a third from the left side to a third away from the bottom right. Now remember, it will dry a little darker, so if you don't see a huge contrast, give it a minute before you go darkening your paint, because acrylic always dries much darker. For me, it's a really dramatic change for me because I'm used to, when I paint with oils for a few weeks and then I switch over to acrylics, the change between dry and wet acrylic really I find very drastic. All right, I'm doing another line kind of curved in the opposite direction towards the right, on the right hand side here. And then another one curving the opposite way from that. There we go. I'm running out of my army green, so I'm just gonna touch up my red over here. Everyone okay? Checking in? Excellent. Just chill. I have, like I was telling Amelia, I have music playing in my headphones. It's not outputting on Zoom, but it's there to keep me happy, so feel free if you guys need music in the background and you want to mute your mic or whatever, feel free if you need some jams. I find it relaxes me a lot more. It makes it feel like I'm just streaming, and for some reason that just makes me more relaxed and less like I'm like, oh, I'm teaching a class, but I know you guys, so it's like, it's weird. It's silly. I know. Music helps. And water. Water helps too. I can hear bits and pieces, but it's not going to come through my recording because I'm not recording the desktop audio, so we're good. It won't be going down into history. It's okay. Although, like, you know, every time I go to edit the recordings, and I'm gonna check at the break just to make sure that the recording worked this time, because wow, what a nightmare. Yeah, I always check to see if I can hear you guys, and because my setup is slightly different every time, because I'm learning as I go, sometimes I hear you guys and sometimes I don't. So it's always a fun surprise. Like the last class didn't record at all, and the class before that I was telling you guys, oh, it doesn't matter, I can't hear you, and you could hear. And so I had to edit out some stuff if it spoke about locations or personal things, right? Especially over the break where I'm like, it's okay, nothing's recording. I had to go and like shorten things, mute here and there. That's okay. They are, if you feel like you want to add some green on top of it that's a bit lighter, so I kind of went back over some of them. You could even, because it's not like super supposed to be in front, so what you could do to cover it, if you want to make it a bit lighter, add some white to your green. And I'll do it here just because actually it might be a nice effect. So I'm adding some white to my green, and you can even do in a few spots, have it go over your branches. And then it kind of makes it look more, less like it's like a screen sitting in front of your background, and helps bring it more into the foliage too. So I'm not gonna do it everywhere, but alternatively, if you just want to lighten the stems on their own, just grab a little bit of white over whatever color you were using and then retrace over your lines that you think are too dark. But that might be a bit too tedious, so it depends on how, like I said, a lot of this is getting painted over, so it's okay. We are, yeah, we're doing it. It's good. It's all good. Half of it's getting painted over. It's all good. Doesn't matter. It's about the experience of, you know, we're just actually painting. It's the experience of actually painting is what we're after. Who cares about what it looks like? It's okay. Well, that's fun. Making a cool effect with your brushes. I like that. Sometimes I've seen some really interesting, I mean, probably on TikTok. Not that I'm on TikTok very often. But people intentionally lining up certain colors on their palette in a way that their brush will streak through it, and then putting that onto the canvas, like intentionally. But oh my goodness, I don't think, like, I find it really hard to simulate that. Like, there are different ways to paint in general, and one of them is where they're very much about the application method over the final product. And for me, I'm way more about like touching things up and sculpting the painting in a way where I control the final product. That's why I don't like splattering stars, and I don't like acrylic pours, because I don't like that it's that spontaneity. Again, I'm all about planning everything, right? So I don't like that spontaneous, like, I didn't control that, I don't like it, you know? Whereas sometimes some people's entire painting practice is based on that spontaneity. And I should probably try it more often, because I bet I I would discover some cool stuff if I did it more often. Don't forget to paint your edges. Yeah. Oh my goodness, it is a heated debate. I will tell you that. So I know you guys can't see me, but that's okay. Right? I think they're gorgeous, and they have some of them turn out really well. And whether or not it's a skill-based thing, or if it's skill or if it's chance, and that debate is also something that's discussed heavily over abstract art too. Like especially some people who do practice abstract art that's more spontaneous, you know, chucking paint at something. And yeah, there is a question of skill. You know, there's one thinks of like, okay, well, or were they just lucky and now they're charging $10,000 for this painting and they can't produce it ever again? Or is it a skill that they've honed and they know how to get these results or whatever? So it's tricky. So like, I like how some acrylic pours look, but typically I look at the artist's entire body of work and I'm kind of like, well, you know, this one was cool, but I don't know if I would hire them for something, right? Because it's not predictable, you know, unless they were willing to do 10 versions until, you know, they came up with something that I liked that I wanted to buy. So it's tricky. It is very chance-based. Yes, they do, actually. I've never done one, but it would be, you know what, I think an auto artist, I think Brenda Dunn teaches classes on how to do it. And yeah, I think it's such a wonderful like experience, right? So it's more about like, you know, it's the application, right? So it's like, you know, getting to throw paint on canvas. I did this one project in university, of course, where we had, we bought this giant paper, put it up on the wall, dressed up in clothes we were intentionally going to ruin, and then roll around in paint and then chuck ourselves at the wall, you know? And it's, right? It was a ton of fun, and it's more about that application process, right? And the final product was garbage, right? But the story and the videos that went with it, A+, right? So, good times. I'm trying to decide what brush to use for the flowers. The middle, yeah, something rounded for sure. But I was wondering if there could be a cheat to do a petal with like one brush stroke. Right? Right, that's what I was thinking. Like, I might try it. I might try to do like I'll use this one, this little background here. Yeah, I was thinking maybe like a horseshoe with a rounded one. I mean, with a flat round. Alternatively, we can use a small and outline it and then just fill it in, kind of like coloring styles. That's a nice one too, because when you press down, it'll fan out and then it'll go back small again. So actually, that's a good point. Maybe I'll get that one too, just in case. We'll try a few methods. That's what this is for. Try whatever you got. Oh, I have this big, beautiful round I've never used yet. Oh wait, no, I did use it. I bought a whole. I can't tell if it's dirty from like just being in my studio or if I've actually used it. You never know in here. Although I'm getting cleaner. I'm getting much. It's like a personal goal just to be. Like, I need to get out of the mindset that I have to be a mess to be a successful artist. There's that stereotype of the messy painter with like, it's okay, I'm an artist, and I'm just like, I am very much happier in a clean environment. And like, but I'm a messy person. Like, but I'm not dirty. I'm like, when I sit down to do a project, I spread all my supply, and I want to see all my supplies. I want to see all my washi tapes and all my glues and my papers and my scissors. So when I'm working on something, yeah, I'm a mess, right? Because I want to see everything. But now I do so many different things. I want to be able to transition between different activities and not have to be tripping over everything. So right now my goal is to get my office so that it's constantly clean, so that when it's a blank slate, it's more inviting to start a new project, because then I don't have to clean everything up, So like my desk now has nothing on it but my monitors. Nothing. Like not a Kleenex box, no pencils, nothing. So it's like, I showed a picture of it to a friend of mine, and he's like, I wonder how long that's gonna last, But normally, exactly, that's normally what mine did look like. And now I feel like I'm really trying to, because I do so many different things, right? So like if I really feel like journaling one day, I don't want to have to clean up all my paints. And if I feel like drawing, I don't want to have to clean up all my washi tapes or whatever. So anyway, I'm pretty sure. Yes, even though you have more space and it's really easy to have a spot for this and a spot for that and a spot for that. Yeah. I had that for a while here. I had like all my knitting and crochet in the den, and then I had my journaling in the kitchen, and I had my paint in here. But eventually it got chaotic because the kids would get into it, or the cat would get into it, or like I would forget where something is, or some tools need to be present for all three, like a ruler, or I don't know, whatever. It's 8:15. All right. It's dry. Yeah, it's dry. It was kind of dry before anyway, but I needed to go to the bathroom, so. Breaks are good. We had been painting for an hour, roughly. So I have 3 brushes here. 4. I'm gonna try each of them. We're gonna do some tests, and then you can watch, or you can test it on something, or you can test it on your own canvas if you're brave. I don't remember what I used for the sample. I think that's kind of what I'm getting at. So you will need white paint. We're starting with white. So make sure you have a clean white on your palette. I'm gonna have to, this is looking like a piece of art in itself. You got like 2 little people here, and there's like a cloud of, I don't know, whatever. So I'm gonna grab some white with, I could sell this plate. I could. I can like sign my name right here. I would love to be at that level, right? Like if I just like basically, paint on a plate and call it art and put it on my site and have it sell 2 minutes later. That's the dream, right? Right? Maybe? Okay, sure. Why not? All right. So, I know some artists who their quick doodles and sketches, I would, if they did a quick sketch or something, I would totally pay, maybe a maximum of like $50 or something. I don't know, like depending on who it's from. So, but they're so skilled that a 15-second drawing or painting or maybe 2-minute sketch would actually be worth it. But if it's like, if you can't tell who did it and it's a 15-second flower on like a piece of cardboard, I don't know if I'd pay for that. Yeah, right? That's true. That's true. My son does. He makes these comics and like he spends a whole 5 minutes on them and he's like, do you want to buy it? I'm like, no. I'm not gonna buy it. Right? 5 cents. I'm like, fine, here's a nickel. All right, so I'm trying it with my largest filbert first. I have some white paint and it's curved, and I'm just gonna see if I it's already quite rounded, so that is one way. where it's kind of like a loop, and I'm pushing, and I push really hard at the tip of the petal, and then I'm swinging it back around. Now this is more if you're not very confident with your freehanding. That's an option, okay? That's a flat. That's the flat round filbert. I'm gonna try it with the pointed round. I'm dipping it in water first because the pointed ones are a bit finicky. I'm rolling it around in the white paint, and I'm gonna do the next petal. These are all 4-petaled flowers, so I'll do one here as a demo, and then I'll go back to our class piece. So the second one I'm gonna try, it's pointed, it's round. I'm not pushing very hard at the middle, and then I push harder towards the end of the petal again. But as you can see, it's not filling up the petal like it did with the other one. And by the time I let go, it's tapered off quite a bit, and there is not very much paint on it. So it's like one calligraphy stroke, but it has a little bit more control. So that's an advantage to that brush. So I'm going to, I actually need to close it off and then fill it in. All right, so that's another example. If you are comfortable with freehanding it, you can grab a smaller pointed, and this will act more like a pen or a marker. So I'm dipping it in water first just to keep the tip pointed, and then rolling it around in the white paint, and then literally just tracing the shape. Now, I am very comfortable freehanding stuff, right? I have lots of experience drawing. So this would probably be a bit harder, but it depends on how confident you are. And again, I would say when we're doing these petals, this is very similar to how when we would do the paint classes that have a blended background and then we go on top of it for the subject in black as a silhouette. I'm just treating it kind of like that, where we want to keep the background showing in more than one spot. So when I do this shape, you can start small and then make it a little bigger. And if, oh, I think that could go a little bit bigger, I can do another one. And that's a safer way to go about it if you're freehanding it. Frankly, even if you're using a rounded flat, you can do that as well. Start small, because you don't want to have to go back and put our green on top of the petals, because then it's, I mean, I'm not saying you can't. It's not a bad thing to go back and, like, here, if I grab this brush here and I'm like, oh, I don't like, I'm gonna touch it up with some green, you can totally do that. And it's not a bad thing. If you're a super picky perfectionist like I am in a lot of paintings, I can tell where I fixed it and it bothers me. So often because it'll dry a bit differently, right? So that's, you can see it, it kind of sticks out. Sometimes what it does is it flattens the painting. So like it makes it look less realistic. So those are your options. Choose whatever you're comfortable with. I'm going to switch over to our actual canvas and start with the first flower. So the first flower I'm gonna do is gonna be our middle one for our bee. And that way everything can kind of work around that. So we want to do the center one first so that we can position it properly. And then all the flowers we add after that can go wherever. So I want my bee to be about here-ish. So I'm gonna do a flower, there's gonna be 4 petals, 1, 2, 3, 4, right around there. For me, it helps to actually touch it, to see it. I mean, I'm a very visual, tactile person, so like, okay, it's going there. Okay, I know that. Now I'll take my brush out. Me personally, I'm gonna use the giant filbert rounded because it covers more space faster. And I'm fairly good with flipping it on its edge if I need to change the shape of it. So now I have all these wet brushes everywhere, so I'm gonna just put these away so they don't dry while I'm blabbing, because that will happen too. Now for this layer, I don't mind using a bit of water with my white because I'm going to be layering over it a few times. So and I find if I'm doing a very fluid motion, adding a little bit of water to your paint, if you're using a thicker paint, it really helps. All right, so I'm putting the white on this filbert, rounded flat, 1 inch or so. I'm gonna say the middle of my flower is gonna be roughly, it's not the middle of the canvas, it's kind of like if you went to the absolute center of your canvas and shifted it a bit to the right around there. Maybe a bit more to the left, sorry. Somewhere around there. So it's kind of like we're following the rule of thirds, and if you were to split this canvas up into thirds, it'd be like that and like that. So it would fall on the left-hand side near the middle like that. So that's kind of my center. Again, that's where the bee is gonna go, so it doesn't matter that I kind of do X marks the spot here because it's gonna get covered. You're measuring. Not everything has to be perfect right away. We're measuring. So I have my rounded. I'm gonna start with the top right petal. So I'm going to start a bit thinner and then push towards the end of it. Now the top of my petal, I'm starting small. The top of my petal reaches about, in the sample piece, it's very close to the top. I'm not sure if I'm gonna make it that close in this one. I'll try. And around there. And then I'm gonna fill it in. So they're gonna be flat white for now, and then we're gonna shade them after. So I'm gonna do this first flower, judge the size, and we can always make it bigger, but always we're starting small just in case we wanna make it bigger. We don't wanna start huge and then cover up our whole background that we worked so hard on. Okay, so there's one petal. So these basically look like little clovers. They are four-sided. Oh, I added water. Now it's dripping. Stop dripping. Okay. If your background is dry and you have drippy paint, you can wipe it off. If you have a cloth nearby, and I will totally demo this because it's fun to do. So if I had done this and it's dripping down, really, because the background is dry, I just wipe it and it goes away. And it's all gone. Magic, because acrylic is plastic. And it's not oil. So if you have oh my gosh, I put too much water on my paintbrush, always have like you could use paper towel, but I recommend using terry cloth, not just because it's reusable, but because it doesn't leave fibers behind. All right, so there's the second petal. And yeah, you can always wipe off your canvas. Fun fact, if you really hate your painting and it has been less than 12 hours, you can actually, and it's on canvas and not paperboard, you can just wash your canvas in the shower. I've done it before, where I didn't want to paint over it. I was too impatient and I didn't have another canvas and I wanted to start something new right away. I put it and I think it was in like the laundry room sink, and I used the shower head section or whatever of that faucet. And you can just scrub it off because this is linen, right? It's cloth. And if it's primed with like an acrylic gesso, but it's been less than, the 72 hours or whatever, it'll come off. That being said, if you gesso a canvas and you try painting on it right away, sometimes it leaks, it runs. So that's why I give the 48 to 72 hour for acrylics to completely set. But, surface level, they're fine after 5 minutes, really. All right, so I have the 4 petals. This one's a little bit, okay, no, I only have 3 so far. I put this one right here. Now, as far as measurement, if you're freaking out about these petals, you could even do a test and do like a cross, because really it's like that, like an X. Oops, it's dripping everywhere. Like an X, and then you can fill them in. That's another way to do it. Because it really is just like expanded, like if you did like an X and then just made each leg of the X really poofy, basically. So because you can see the cross section here, it would be like that, and then like that, and that would be, and your metal would be right there. So that's another way to go about it. Actually, we can maybe try to do that for one of the following flowers. So there's my flower, the first one. It's just so. It's not super detailed. The white is still a little bit translucent because I used water. mostly just because I want to have that freedom of movement and I want it to dry a little quickly, which is funny to think that adding water to something would make it dry faster, but in this case it does. It dilutes the fixative in the acrylic paint, and it just makes it dry faster. So fun fact, use water, thins it out. All right, so the next flower I'm gonna do is the one to the left, and in the sample it kind of gets cut off, but I think in this one, yeah, it might get cut off a little bit. We just want them, we want it at a different angle slightly. So we'll pick our center, and then I'm gonna try doing that X technique, which I just came up with 2 seconds ago, and I'm gonna see if it works. Very experimental, it's all good. Might need more white. Mine is, yeah, if it's, yeah, sometimes. All right, this petal is awfully close to that one. Well, the bee's butt is gonna be right there. All right, so for the next flower, I'm gonna say the center will be there. There we go. Measurement-wise, it's still halfway about, like if there was a horizon line, if the canvas was split in two, vertically, horizontally, whatever. It's about halfway up and down, and like only a couple inches away from the left side. All right, as far as our little X thing, let's see if this will work. So this flower is more angled, like, we'll say like that will be one petal, that will be another, and then boop, and boop. So we're gonna try this. It looks like a little windmill right now. It's got like a little ball in the center from when I guesstimated the center, and I put little arms on it. We have our X marks the spot. I'm gonna grab some more white paint because I'm running low. Okay, so we got some white. And now, this actually might be a lot easier because now we kind of have a goal to get to the end of our petal, right? So starting at the middle here, pushing down, and just stopping at the end of that. I like that, that works. Good job. Nice job, Kina. Oh, thanks, Kina. All right, and that way you can start it super thin, like that, and then make it wider if you need to, like as you go. So right now, the 2 flowers I'm doing, most of the flowers in this painting are face on, like they're not going out, they're not going back into perspective. I did try to do it with a couple of them, but for the first 2, we'll make it simple. We'll just make them straight on. Don't want to get too fancy. All right, and the next 2. Yeah, and this is definitely why it will take 2 sessions, because we're still, it's like 8:30 and we're still painting flowers. You can imagine. When I did the sample piece on Twitch, it was Sally who mentioned it. She's like, I think this will take more than 1 class. I'm like, I think you're right. Even without all the blabbing that I do on Twitch, it still took a full 4 hours to do. Yeah, that's even just like, I'd say a good half hour to 45 minutes of that was my break time though, and a lot of the stream I'm just chatting, right? So, but I have to also accommodate for the speed of everyone else painting and explaining things and whatever. So I don't think it hurts. Yeah, it's all good. So yeah, I'm comfy with making this 2 parts. All right, let's make a few more of these. All right, so I would like to overlap some of them. That way we have an opportunity to play with some shading for these flowers. So the next one I'm gonna do, I kind of triangulate. It's a fancy word for saying I make a triangle. Here's a dot around here. So it would be a triangle from here, here to here, from 3 flowers from the centers. So I made the center of the next one where I know it's gonna get overlapped by the 2 others. And that's the plan, because we want it to look a little fuller. All right, so for the X marks the spot for this one, I'm gonna make the top one kind of go between them, but closer to the left side. And the bottom one down there. to be perpendicular, but I think it looks better if they are for now, at least for these ones. And this one's gonna get cut off, and that's okay. It's a bit shorter. I need more white paint again. Thank you. Then we do our thing again. So when you do, I would say stop when you get to the petal and then just kind of fill it in on its own. We want the one up here to stay on top. So it might be a little tricky. And if not, if you want to just do the curve, that's fine. And then you can kind of redo the one on top after if you like the brush strokes to look like it's, you know, on top of the other one. Because we will be shading this bottom one to make it look like it's underneath after. I'm just doing a petal there. It is hard to tell what's over what right now, and that's why I don't want to do a whole ton of flowers, but because then it would just look like a mass of white, and then we would just be spending all day shading random parts for petals. So let's just have a few of them overlapping in small parts so it's not too confusing. I don't even know what kind of flowers these are. I guess they're not, yeah, no idea. I just saw it in like a Pinterest thing and I'm like, oh, that looks like a nice picture of a bee. Well, I wonder, yeah, because that's definitely what these ones look like. They have these I think it would be, because they're so small. It's all good. You don't have to, don't worry about it. But I think, yeah, some kind of blossom would be accurate just because of how, I don't know, small they are and prolific. Small and prolific, I feel like, are either some kind of wildflower or a blossom on a tree or something. All right, let's see how many more do we have space for. All right, so our bee eventually is going to be here, and the wing will be around there. So I think I have some petals under here, so we'll make, all right. I'm going to make the next one at the bottom right, not too far at the bottom, kind of around there. And for this one, I'm gonna try to make it look a little bit like the flower is on its side, but not totally on its side. And I'm using this one here as an example. If you were, oh, it's blurry. Come on, it's focusing on my something. Anyway, there we go, a little bit better. So if you were to do an X for the cross section of these petals, it would look more like a curve. It would look more like that, if you can see that. So let's try that for this one. It's not a perfect X. It's gonna be more like as if it were in a bowl and the petals are kind of curving upwards. So it might be a little bit tricky, but I believe in you, okay? You can do this. It's a variation on the theme. It's not hard. Our flowers are getting a little bit smaller, so if you're using a big brush like me and you need to switch it up, then I think I might do that actually. It all depends on what you're working with. Do what feels right. All right, so for this one, we're not doing a straight up X. We're not doing a big plus sign. We're gonna curve it a bit. So I'm gonna start down here. That will be the bottom of one of my petals, and I'm gonna curve it right there. So they're not totally, they don't hit the center, right? If you were to draw a line between them, they wouldn't go through the center. That's because we're gonna do a curve to get to the center. So you can do a slight curve for one, and then a curve for the other one too. So the center of the flower is the middle of this curve. It's not a perfect curve. That's okay. So this is the middle of my flower, and that's the top of one, and that's the bottom of the other. Cool, cool. And then the next one, we're gonna do something similar where this is the edge of one. It kind of falls off the edge of the canvas for me. That's okay. But you see what I mean? It's like a curved line. Words, whatever, curved. So if you need a dot for the edge of the other as like a measurement, I would say do it like slightly at the corner, at the edge of your canvas here. Whoop. And the center of the flower is like the bottom of the bowl. If the flower petals made a bowl. If. And we do the same thing where we make them wider. Now, when you're making this one wider, you kind of have to treat it as if the whole thing is like, you're still making it wider the same way, but it's definitely kind of leaning towards the top this way, right? The top left. So there is still a curve. It's not going to be as obvious, but whoop, like that. So now we're just kind of simulating the flower at an angle. What might help to do the petals, if you're wanting a different technique to try, follow that middle line and repeatedly, slowly go out further and further, but just press harder near the end. So I'm using a small rounded, and I start very lightly at the center, and then I push towards the end, and I push harder and harder as I get closer to the end, like that. And then it kind of naturally makes this teardrop shape where it's smaller at the beginning and thicker at the end. And then I do the same thing on the other side until I have a petal. Like that. How are you guys finding the petals? Are you okay? Haven't heard very much. A little wacky? I'm getting there. That's okay. Real flowers don't always have super even petals. And because it's all white, you can always add a little more to balance it out, right? Hopefully this isn't too crazy. The bowl, yeah. Excellent. I'm glad that imagery works. I did a whole big painting of cherry blossoms for my mom for Mother's Day a few years ago, and I very much by the end of it was just picturing them. I would kind of make a shape with my hand as a petal, because you get a simulation of where, you know, especially it's typically like that, and then you slowly put it on its edge and then you curve it, and then you get this, like, this is the front lip and that's the back. And like I was constantly like doing this and like that, and I'm like trying to figure out these flowers, but I mean I eventually got the hang of it. But yeah, they are, because when you think about it, flowers start as a bud and they're all pointed together, and then they just slowly come out. So they're never gonna, I mean, not until they start dying when they go backwards, you know, and fall out, but like, it's always gonna be like a cone shape, and the light will always react with it in a certain way. And yeah, anyway, shapes. It's great to break things down into basic geometric shapes. It helps so much. Alrighty. I like this flower. I like this one. I think he's my favorite. Let's do a couple more and then we'll start shading them, and then, well, it's almost already 9 o'clock. Hot damn! Time flies. All right. Let's do this one up here. I seem to only have 3 petals on this one. Let's give that a try. All right, so for this one, oh, I do something different with this one. Okay, so a straight line going up towards the corner, the top right corner, but it's short. And then this one's long, and it's going in thirds, so it's almost like a windmill, or maybe a peace sign. Kind of wonky, but I'm gonna show you guys something. A different angle flower. All these harder flowers are, yeah, they're a bit different. So for this one, we're gonna make, I'll show you. This flower it looks like it's going further into the distance, like the petal is cut because it's folding away from us, okay? So it usually looks like this, but this petal, the flower is open like this, so it's like a plate. If you see it like this, you can't see the other side. Or the petal is curling away from us. So if my fingers were the petal, they are receding in the background and you can see a flat surface instead of a rounded surface. So that's why this is flat. So it gives the illusion that the flower petal is, you know, going off into the background. So to do that, we do more of a V shape. I'm doing okay, maybe it's an upside, maybe it's more of a W, but that's my center. And I'm gonna bring these sides up until they're almost as if there's a curve here, an invisible curve, until we're gonna make it until it's a little higher, until they're almost even, and then we're gonna cap it off like boop, and then fill it in. And then we have this kind of like rounded triangle shape, but when combined with our whole scene, it gives the illusion that it's a flower petal that's boop, receding into the background. And for the other ones, I'm not doing that for the other two petals because it's only the one in the back that I wanted to do that. So I'm filling out this petal here, and it's stuck to my big first flower that I did, but that's okay. And then again, just a regular flat petal for this one here. There we go. Oops. Oopsie daisies, there's oopses everywhere, it's okay. All right, we're almost done. I just wanted to add, I can fix it. You can fix it, Sally. I believe in you. I'll fix it tomorrow. Yeah, that's also an option. It's acrylic, you can always paint over it. Fix any section. The hardest part really is remembering what paints you used and mixing accurate colors to paint over it if that's what you're doing. Yeah. All right. Well, that's handy because then you can always have them to fix things. So yes, remembering, yeah, that's why I try to, if I do touch-ups, I try to keep it soon after so I don't forget where it was that I wanted to fix it. And that's often why, like, if I put a painting away for too long, then I forget what it was that I wanted to fix, and I get frustrated. Or I just say, what was wrong with it anyway? And then I get over myself. So the last petal I'm doing is as if the flower is behind our main one. And I did this mostly because I felt like the bee, there was too much of a tangent here, and I wanted there more support to be underneath him. So it's just a simple petal or two. I'm gonna freehand it. So we'll say that it's like, there's one here, and then one there. Basically, I want the bottom of this big flower to have support from other petals, but I want a few windows of color. So I'm keeping a little triangle of green here, the bottom corner here, and a little triangle of color here, but everything else is gonna get filled in with white for now, and then we're gonna shade it after. So it's gonna look like a lot of white right now, and I need you guys to bear with me here, because, and I don't want you to fill it in indiscriminately. I want you to, maybe, if you can, to try to remember where the edges of all the flowers are, even though it's all in white. It's really tricky right now to see it, but if you can keep that image in your mind of the order of the petals that we did, it'll really help when we're shading them. Because right now it looks like a giant patch of like white craziness, but when we add that shading, it's gonna really define them. So I'm gonna paint around it as if it is a separate petal. I'm not just gonna like fill the whole thing in with white, because then it'll be really hard to see what it is I was trying to achieve. And that's why I often make my first layer a mix with water, because it's sketchy. I want it to dry faster. I already explained this, I'm repeating myself, but you never know. Sometimes some things don't stick until the 10th time you've heard them. I know that's how it is for me. I'll have a teacher being like, I already told you that. And I'm like, yeah, but it's as if I just heard it for the first time. you know, depending on where my mind was when I was listening to them or what I was looking at, or who knows? Who knows? All right. Yeah, exactly. Might have been just paying attention to something different. All right, cool. Next, I'm going to, let's see, should we do the center of the flowers next? Yeah, I think if we do the centers of the flowers next, it'll be easier to shade the petals because we'll have a better orientation of what's where. So go ahead and grab some of that yellow again, and we're gonna mix a yellow with a tiny bit of red to make it so that it's not glaringly pure yellow, because sometimes it can be a bit intense. So wash your brush. If you're using a small pointed, I would recommend to stick with that. And if you're not using a small pointed, then switch over to your small pointed brush. Mine is a number, I don't know, number 5. As we discovered earlier, I was getting brushes to Amelia, and a number 2 is really small. Like, yeah, like, I forget that I don't have a good sense of the numbers yet, and I'm still learning, because I just go and I buy brushes that look like, I don't know, that's a good size, like, I don't know, it's tiny. It is. I was like, oh, number 2 means 2 bristles. Yeah, it's tiny. I have a whole set like that I use for hyper detail work when I needed them for my portrait painting class, and I was just like, I needed them for eyelashes, for shading under the eyes, for doing strands of hair. It was like, oh. So the one I'm using now is like a 5 or a 6 or something like that, and that seems to be the average small round size. It's like half my pinky or something. Anyway, I'm washing the brush, grabbing some yellow. Sorry, getting off track here. Keep the white around, because we're gonna mix a whitish color to shade the petals. Yes. We will be mixing it's gonna be like an off-white green-gray for the shading of the petals shortly. So we're gonna do the centers of the flowers first, and then, that's right, I don't have my sample piece up on the screen. Boop. Let me see if this little guy, hang on, I think I might have a different one. There he is. Man, I can't believe I forgot to put that up. That's okay. Normally I have it in there. I don't know where to put it. Ah. Oh, it's okay. That works. That works. As long as you can see this and you can see that, we're good. You don't have to, I don't know, whatever. If there's a problem, let me know. All right, so I'm grabbing yellow, which I've said for the 10th time because I keep repeating myself. And then a dot of red. And we're making some orange, but it's more yellow than, okay, I take it back. I really should have had a microscopic dot of red. I don't want it to be this orange. I want it to be more yellow than orange. I just didn't want that green yellow, you know? I want it to stand out from the yellow that we're using in the background, and that's why I'm adding red to it instead of leaving it plain yellow. All right, so that's kind of like a rich, it's not quite an ochre, maybe like a canary yellow, like buttery. Yeah. No white to it, no. This is just yellow. Oh my goodness, it's so bright on camera. It's very bright, but I swear it's not that bright in person. It's more like, okay, that's a bit better. My camera, it doesn't. But I will say, if your yellow is super, super translucent and watery and clear, then go ahead and add a little bit of white and it'll be okay. It'll thicken it. It'll also help with the color. Mine is quite opaque as is. We're gonna leave this flower alone. This is where the bee's gonna be. If you really want to, actually, it doesn't hurt to just do a little, I'm just gonna do a little X there. That's eventually where our bee will be. And also just so that I can visually tell where the center of this big flower is. Okay, let me see. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit for you guys. There. You won't see my face anymore, but this is more important right now. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the first flower that's the most visible, that is the largest, which is immediately to the left. And I'm going to do some of the orangey yellow, and I'm going to flick it out towards the petal, starting at the center. So it's a small motion where I'm pressing. Oh, it's quite much darker in my sample piece. We'll start with this. Pressing and then letting go a little bit, and it's making like a feather light touch towards that. Oh, it's so hard to see. Wow, I'm gonna add a bit more red. Maybe then it'll make it less glaringly neon. Okay, you can see that a bit better. It looks terrible in person, but you can see it on camera. Oh my goodness. I have maybe 4 or 5 little strokes that go towards, and it's fanning out in the same direction. So when the petal grows, it grows like a fan shape, so we're just simulating that here. And then we repeat that for the other petals. Oh, it's so bright. It's so intense. It's the sun. This flower is the sun. Wow. So beautiful. And it looks like a little sunburst in the center of our flower there. And then what we're gonna do after we do all these little sunbursts is we'll add the little dots like I had in the sample that show it to be a bit like little dots of pollen around there. I don't know if you can see that. And that's where I got my fix, my dotted, you know, like I put dots on everything. Yeah, I had to find them. I had to do it somewhere. Oh my goodness. I did a whole little, we had this journal project which is funny that it was called that, and in high school, and I chose Liechtenstein, and I did as if it were his diary, and I did this diary in his style, and I had such a blast because he has this like super, well, it's pop art, right? So it's like lots of dots, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna do the same thing to the centers of all my flowers, and I'm gonna tell you that, and I'll let you do it at your own pace. I'm gonna do it here, one over here, and one up here. So in total there are 1, 2, 3, 4 that we're actually gonna do. The one for the center of the bumblebee we're not touching because there'll be a bee on top of it, so there's no point. If you want to stop your painting without a bee, then you can totally add this to that main flower, and it's like kind of a complete painting on its own. The flowers take up most of the, yes. Oh, sorry, right. Better? Yeah, it's kind of floppy. Yeah, that's the bowl flower. The flower that I feel like it could have been in a clear bowl, and that's the shape it would be. All right, so I'm doing I'd say it covers about the bottom third of the petals. There we go. Sweet. All right. For the little dots, I would get you to make yellow with white intentionally, on purpose, because we want a light a lighter yellow for that. So I have some white here, mostly white with a bit of yellow. It's mostly white. So that I'm gonna use my round brush, again, the same one, pointed round, but I'm gonna kind of scoop it because I want it to be thicker. And when I dot it, it just kind of sits, right? It's thicker, so it can sit on top. We're not gonna be blending it or anything. I just grab a bunch of it and then dot in the center 5 or 6 times. Larger ones in the center, smaller ones toward the outside, because it's supposed to be like the pollen, I think they're the stamen, I don't remember, of the flower. Yeah. So like dots, and then you want to have the white for this yellow, that for the dots, so that it sticks out from the previous layer. And it doesn't matter if the previous layer is still wet, so long as it's not super thick and heavy paint, a dot of white sitting on top will be visible. I'm talking as if you can see my face, but that's okay. I'm making all these expressions and hand gestures and okay. So that's that. That's a quick and easy step. I'm glad we did that first because it's 9 o'clock and we're getting only one more step left. All right, so for the last step, give you a second. Now, even this step, I probably would have wanted to have more time for, but it's okay. We can always touch it up at the next class too and start it off. The painting that never ends. All right, so I'm grabbing some. Once you're done with the finished making the dots, I'm getting some new white, and this will be the color for the shading of our flower petals. And I'm sorry if I'm rushing, it's because it's 9 o'clock and I feel like I need to be wrapping up now, but I can show you the step, and that way if you need to run because it's getting late, I can at least have this step shown and then you can work on it later. Yes, I am still using the pointed round. Thank you for asking. I have some white on my canvas, and now just a quick bit of theory, because it'll make it make sense. White objects often reflect, well, they're white, right? So by nature, they reflect all sorts of colors. If you have a white shirt and you're standing next to an apple, some of that color of the apple is going to reflect onto your white shirt. It's going to look like your shirt is a different color in that area. The same thing happens with flower petals, and I think I just touched my own shirt with wet hands. Nope, I'm good. All right, so the same thing happens with flower petals very often. So sometimes flower petals, especially white ones, will take on the color of either the sky or whatever's around them. So often you'll see, it's just like snow. Snow will, in the shading for snow, it turns blue, right? Because normally it's reflecting the color of the sky if it's daytime and the snow reflects the blue. So in this case, because the background is green and because this is a densely foliage area and the shadowy areas where the sun is not reaching, the petals are reflecting the green from the background. But it's not going to be pure solid green, okay? We're going to start with the white because that's the color, that's our base color, our local color, which is what it's called. The local color is white, and we mix in a little bit of the green to make a medium color, and that's what we're going to use to shade some of these petals, okay? It's kind of green, but you don't want to make it solid green. We're going to be mixing a green that's kind of a gray green, if you can see that. And that's the reason why you wouldn't jump in to shade white with black, thinking, oh, dark white is gray, and I'll just mix a gray with black, right? So that's not what we want to do. We want to take color theory into account. We want to shade it properly with its environment. And that's why I don't like using black paint, because no environment in a sunny day is going to be shaded with black. It's going to be shaded with whatever colors are around. Okay, so my rants with that is done. So you got your white paint, and I still have a little bit of green that's alive from previously. If you don't have any, that's fine. You can mix some up. Just add a little bit of yellow, a little bit of blue to your white. So now we have a pale green. And I'm starting it on the palette first because I really want the color to be right before I put it on here. It doesn't have to be perfect, we can test it, but I would like it to be pretty close before I put it onto the canvas. Now, I don't want it to be pure green because, again, like I said, it's not as if someone's flashing a green flashlight straight onto the petals. It's reflecting it. So it's going to be white with a bit of another color, and that's where your complementary color comes in. Sorry, I blanked there totally for a second. So the complementary color of green, you'll always, if you have one color in your light, you're going to get the complementary color in the shadow. That's another bit of color theory, but it comes up a lot if you're looking at an object that has bright yellow light shining onto something. If you look at the color of its shadow, it's going to have a bit of the opposite color. It'll have some purple tinges to it if it's a bright yellow light. So in this case, we're going to have a little bit of red, and I mean a tiny bit. Like, I'm really reducing it so that it's very little, and then I'm going to add it to this pale green that I just made. All right. So adding a bit of red to green is going to neutralize this color. It's going to make it more on the gray scale. It's not a huge difference. It's pretty subtle, but man, is it ever going to make a difference if you just stuck it straight onto a white petal. This is like basic color theory. We're reducing the saturation of a color by adding its complementary color. And I know that probably might sound scary, but it makes for nice paintings. It's a lot of steps in color mixing. I know it can be really intimidating, but basically you're going to start with white, you add the green for your background, and you add a touch of red to make it less garish, like less bright green. And we're going to take this color, and first we're going to shade a nice and easy flower petal where we know we're going to attack this one right here underneath the underneath this flower. So I have this color here. And now that I'm finished blabbing so much about this, I'm going to start shading it. Ooh, it's a lot more yellow than I thought it would be. I'm going to add some more green and red. Yep. Sorry, we're finishing up here. So in this case, I want to make the shadow. We're going to pretend that the sun is like, sorry, you can't even see my hands anymore. The sun is like up here, all right? Where my hand is. So a lot of the shadows are going to be heavier towards the bottom right of objects. And this is a lot less green than I thought it would be. Hang on. Now, it's going to take a lot of trial and error, but basically it's primarily white with a bit of green and a touch of red to make it gray. And that's the shadow color. And when I'm doing it, I'm dabbing it in the direction of the flower petal because I am basically, what I'm simulating is the actual petal's direction of growth. Again, I'm not brushing sideways. I'm not brushing out in every direction. I'm keeping this shape by only applying the brush strokes in the direction that the petal would have grown. And to make it actually look like it's shaded, I'm adding a bit to another petal here, and then a bit to the petal that's underneath this big guy. And we're not covering the whole petal, just a little bit here and there. So now we have, oh, this is so yellow on camera. Goodness. Hang on. Add a bit more blue and red. There we go. This is way more gray. All right, I added a bit of blue to mine. Let's see what that does. And like, experiment with your color mixing. Try mixing all of your colors. I mean, not all of them together, but we're aiming for like a gray green, right? So there, that's a bit better. And now another thing, like the closer it gets to the object that is blocking the light, the darker the shadow. And I don't want to get too more complicated than I'm already getting, but like that. Okay. Now I might even have another brush going of white if I want to go back because I put too much shadow on there. Just as a quick demo for one flower, and then you guys can do the other ones in a similar way. So what I like to do for flower petals, for the edges, sometimes I go back over it and add some white, kind of to define the tips, because sometimes the tips of the flower petals curl upwards and they'll be a bit brighter. Like that. Hopefully that wasn't too crazy complicated, but it's a complex idea for shading, I know, especially since we don't normally shade objects in these classes, but I figured I'd at least introduce it to you guys. The color theory stuff is fun. It's fun. All right, so I'm gonna add this green, this gray-green color to another one of the petals. Adding some. It's really an exercise in mixing colors and seeing and adding a touch of this, a touch of that to get the color you want. And it really helps to have a photo reference, and in this case it would be whatever, you know, my picture that I'm showing you guys. Yeah, it helps to look at something and try to match that color instead of just like trying to guess it. So now I have this gray-green again, and I'm gonna dot it underneath. Ooh, that's really dark. Oh no, what happened? Aw, try wiping it off. Emergency. So I'm using this gray-green color again underneath the main petal that our bee will be on. And I'm going around this flower, the bottom right curvy flower. I'm going around that one and underneath. So I'm kind of accentuating the main flower by putting more behind, pushing back, sorry, words. Pushing back the petal that's down here. And if you find it too dark, you can add some more white and then go play back and forth until the shading makes sense. And by make sense, I just mean like for this petal here, it's a bit of a gradient where the bottom of the petal is lighter, and the closer it gets to this main flower in the middle, the darker it will get, the shadow, I mean, like that. How's your mess, Sally? Is it an absolute disaster? You're on it? Okay, good. I'm glad. Oh no, on mistakes. Excellent. There are no mistakes, just happy accidents. You'll be inspired. Maybe you want a red flower there. I'm going to do the same by shading this other petal, and what I'm doing, excellent. I like that attitude. You can fix it. It's all good. I'm leaving. Excellent. Good. Yeah, you do whatever you feel this piece wants from you. I like to leave the edges to be a little bit that's right, you did mention to me you couldn't make it on the day. Well, you can always check out the recording. You could even put it on like fast mode, or I didn't know that YouTube had a way to fast forward but still play at the same time. You can speed up the playback of certain videos to like, so that, you know, if this ends up being, because I record these and I upload them to YouTube, by the way, right? So when you're watching them on Patreon, they're actually YouTube videos. So if you ever want to look at it without the Patreon background, I have the link, right? So if you need that. Yeah, and you can play it back at like 5 times speed or something. I don't know. Sweet. Thank you so much, Sally, for hanging out. Yeah. Yeah, my kids do it all the time. They're like, they do it to videos. I'm like, why are you, what is, like, I thought at first they were just playing really strange videos, but then I realized that they were just fast forwarding all the videos to see what it would sound like when they're in fast forward. It's interesting to see what they, you give kids technology now and the things they do with it, you know, you never know. So for this paint, for this flower here, I shaded the edge, the inside of it, but I left the white edge. I like how it looks. It's probably not super accurate. If you didn't do that, that's fine. If you would like to add it after, just get another brush with white on it and outline it. I kind of like the look of it just because it kind of helps you see the edges of the flower a bit more. Again, maybe not terribly accurate, but my shading color here is a bit different than my shading color there. It happens. I can go over the other one a bit. And this is kind of where the real challenge in shading stuff is mostly in matching the color again later. Because like you work so much trying to get this perfect shading color and then you can't get the same color again twice and you're like, gosh darn it. So it's a big exercise in that. Hey Sally, are you done for tonight? All right, could I get you to mute your audio for me, please? No worries. Yeah, sometimes I leave my whole stream on by accident for hours. That's happened. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us, Sally. Oh, yeah, ladies plus Rob. Take care, Sally. Good night. So I'm adding the shading to the middle, right outside of the middle top. Sorry, the middle flower. The bee flower. Anywhere where we had overlapping petals, I'm choosing which petal will be in front and shading the one that's behind it. So I think I like this color. I finally mixed a shading color that I'm kind of happy with. I feel like I might have to go back and redo some of the other ones, but so once I do the shading, the darkest area, what I do is in my palette, I have, this is like, oh, sorry. This is the dark version, and then this is my white. So in the middle, I have white mixed with my darkest shading color, and that's what I'm using to kind of blend, slowly integrate this shading. So it's not just the shading that's really standing out there. I'm slowly dabbing the white into the middle area so that it's not a huge stark contrast. You probably can't see it so well though. Let me see if I can zoom in on that. So close up, it's quite a mess, you know. From far away, that's where magic happens. So whatever color works, really, as long as it's not black. Just don't make it black because that's not proper shading. I mean, even if it was, it's not fun looking. Let's see. So for down here, I'm gonna say this petal here is in front of this one here. So I'm gonna kind of outline that. Be like, okay, you end here. And then do my shading like that. I kind of do the first little bit and then I add my white to it. And again, I'm a lot faster, probably, so don't worry. It's the same idea for all the petals. Like that. And for the ones that are curved, what I like to do is shade the corner. Sorry, the edge. Follow that edge. The outside edge here. And then it kind of helps hint at a curve. Kind of like at a fold in the petal, you know? If that makes sense, hopefully. There we go. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about shading the main flower, but if you're only doing the flower and you don't want to do a bee, the main flower doesn't have to be shaded all that much. But what I would like to do is if your paint was like mine, where you mixed some water with it and it's looking kind of thin, you can take some of your white and kind of freshen it up a bit. And I have some of my shading color kind of mixed in there, and I'm just kind of drawing it out. Ooh, I got a chunk of paint there. That's okay. Let's just get rid of that chunk. Some of it dried and I was picking it up. As long as you're following the shape of the petal, then whatever textures you do with your brush in this direction will help it look more natural. Like it's all good, you know? So I have some brighter white, whatever, lighter white, less dirty white in some spots. And because I haven't really washed my brush, it still has a bit of that shading color in there. It makes an interesting texture. And I will be covering this with the bee, so it's no big deal, but I wanted to at least show you guys this technique. Some flowers actually, they show the veins, kind of. I don't know if they'd be called veins, I guess. Flower veins, whatever. They're more visible on some flowers than others. In other flowers, it just shows up as coloration. But like for a pure white flower, you will still see some lines coming out from the center. It's rare that they're just all one pure color, because, I mean, they have, I don't know, waterways, veins? I need to brush up on my plant anatomy. It's been a few. Veins, yeah. Like, kind of like that, yeah. That makes sense. Kind of like when you do that, that experiment with daisies and you stick them in water that's colored and the color goes through to the petals. And it's in lines. You can see where the different veins are. Which ones carry it? Yeah. Vascular. I like that word. All right, so I'm touching up these petals with the same kind of technique. I have a bit of the shading color mixed with white, and it makes a nice texture that shows the petals shape. Yeah, I kind of like how that looked. I did it by accident once, and then I'm like, oh, I kind of like that. So I have a different brush going for that. It's a small one. I grabbed pure white, and it's a small flat, and I kind of just went around here. And it also helps me see where the edge of the flower is, whether or not it's, you know, like physically possible or correct. It's more of a stylistic thing. I tend to put outlines on my things because I'm primarily an illustrator, so that's normally where that comes from. But at the same time, some flower petals, when they grow, the edges do shape, they curl up a little bit, and it kind of shows up as a white outline for some petals. So it gives a nice little touch, I think, doing it on the edges. And I did grabbed a different brush for it too, though, just because I didn't want to, I like having a pure white brush in most of my paintings on the go, just so that it doesn't get too dirty. So it's like I always have it, it's kind of like an eraser. I always have it on hand. Okay. All right. So the only other steps here before we do the bee next time would be, just to touch up the petals. if you wanted to make the stems maybe more accurate to the actual flowers, because right now they're kind of crisscrossing anywhere, wherever, and the flowers are just kind of floating. So one other mention, if you wanted to do this, especially if people are watching this as a recording and they have all the time in the world, I'm mixing up my dark green again, which again was blue, yellow, and a touch of red, and then I can make the stems, ooh, that's really dark, a little more accurate, you know, if you want, for some of them maybe. So, I mean, that kind of looks cool. I don't know. Does it? Does it really? Who knows? I feel like this section is kind of empty. It's because the my sample piece was a bit of a different ratio than this one. But I can add more things up there. You can really take it wherever you want. You can add another flower up there. Oh, maybe I will. I can add like like a half petal up here if I want to get fancy. It's your painting. You do what it's calling you to do. There we go. There we go. Well, I'm going to call this a day for the recording, and I'm going to stop it now-ish, but you get the idea. We're shading, doing flower petals, and then next time we're going to add this cute little bee, and that's a whole other ball of wax. So thank you guys so much for joining me for the first half of this. Again, if you want to shade the main flower, then it's a painting on its own. You can add flowers, you can add some more if you don't feel like it's balanced, but yeah. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.